A pleasure to be here with Arshiya Sethi. Ma'am, welcome to the Kolkata Literature Festival. You're going to be part of a session that talks about the state of the arts. So, what are you most looking forward to talking? What angle or what approach will you bring to the conversation?
I think there are just so many topics one can cover when you look at the state of the arts. One is how much is the state involved with the arts, and then we come to the state of the arts, as it were. So I think a little bit of policy or lack of it, a little bit of how certain states have done a better job in promoting their local cultural life, and hence, the arts that are more local kind of a thing. And I would count West Bengal as one of them, certainly, as the successful models. And one of the biggest failures is Delhi. And the reason is that Delhi is where the world meets India and where the rest of India finds its center. So Delhi is so busy reaching out to other countries through its international programs, that it really doesn't focus on its own, and it's so busy hosting all the other states that the arts of Delhi seldom find any reflection. So even though we now have a festival called the Delhi International Arts Festival, it's about everybody, it's not about Delhi. So then I created, at the time when Delhi was going up for its World Heritage City nomination, a small festival of Delhi called Dilli Ka Apna Utsav. But now I see more focused, and all through private enterprise, mind you, like the Rekta or Delhi Poetry Festival. And that has a more Delhi feel to it. So maybe we will catch up, but Kolkata and West Bengal is far ahead of the pack. Yeah. So these are just some of the questions. Then, of course, I would like to talk about archives or the missing archives. Where are our archives, the national archives for dance, theatre, music, all other arts? What are we doing for the young and new arts like digital or say dance films? For 20 years, I ran India's only dance film festival called Dance Lens. And then in COVID, many more younger people came to the forefront. And I thought, I have suffered the banyan tree effect where people don't give up and leave the space for the next generation. So as soon as I did 20 years of doing the festival, I said time for me to leave and young people to come forth. So these are some of the areas I want to talk about. And if I may just add one more thing, I don't know where we stand now, but at one point of time, I was invited to do a talk in Kolkata on city archives, and I made a and it was by Jadavpur University, and I made a very impassioned plea saying that archives and universities must be linked, because that's where you find the the people who are going to use the hardware of archives, so they're the software and the hardware comes together like that. So there is much to talk about. I think our time will prove to be inadequate.
That's fantastic. Let's talk a little bit about dance and where dance stands, especially in the context of the pandemic. You mentioned that a lot of young people are coming forward. There's even digital dance. A lot of it is becoming, as we may say, in tune with technology of today. So, what do you make of dance in India, particularly Kathak, given your association with it?
So first, I think I'd like to correct you. I have learned Kathak. It is the only dance form that I have learned. And so if you ask me to do anything, I will only do Kathak ka koi piece. But I was dance critic. I learned to respect and be joyous about all forms of dance. So I'm ever in an embracing mood. Everything works for me. Truly, everything works for me. Flash mobs work for me. Hip hop works for me. I was the one not in the slightest bit perturbed when some classical Bharatanatyam dancer, looped in hip hop as part of the performance. And yes, it is doesn't look like Bharatanatyam, but so what? It is dance nevertheless. And who says all performance is the only type of dance that there is? I don't perform now. I stopped performing some 30 years ago or something. but I believe I'm a dancer because the soul and the eyes and the mind is ever dancing. So we need more people like this who have an expansive view, because regrettably, and here the politics comes in, the government's non-policy policy, we don't have a cultural policy. So non-policy policy has been about promoting only classical dances, because they want to visualize India in these perfect terms, and they don't know how to deal with the unexpected or anything out of the range. Hence the Devdasi and the wife had to be thrown out. They couldn't come to terms with those independent women, but with that same attitude, they've also thrown out the monks of Assam out of the picture and made Satriya, the which in Assam is pronounced as Hotriya, as the eighth classical dance form. But if you see it, hardly any monks are now visible on stage. It is all the urban women, English speaking, and who do not live the dance. They learn the dance.
Let's segue a little bit while you.
Can I add something else? Yeah, so then there are also new problems that we are having, and this again came forth in the COVID period, that we are totally oblivious to certain types of ethics. Like, we think nothing of picking up a piece, somebody's music piece, and dancing it without permission. Now, if you're doing it in an auditorium, you may get away with it because the actual writer of that piece of music may be in Chennai and you've just danced it in Delhi, and the distance protects you. But when in the COVID time we went onto the digital media, everything was algorithmically filtered, and the algorithm would just catch copyright issues. So during COVID, I found many aspects of the law troublesome for the arts, including dance. Plagiarism about articles, the complete absence and disrespect for any contract. Also, the biggest renegade in that was the government. The FM declared that it is an act of God, and now I'm washing my hands off it and let the artists and dancers suffer. There were dancers who lagao thelas of sabzi, selling vegetables to make both ends meet, kind of a thing. So the scene was very bleak then, but our spirit is amazing. We domesticize space, our kitchens and our bathrooms and our bedrooms and driveways became places we danced and filmed and shared it with everybody. I want you to point out something. I do not think anyone was as generous as a community as the artists were, whether it was dance or song. They shared it, even if they had nothing on the table to eat. They were sharing what they had, the wealth they had, which was this intangible wealth. So when all these legal questions came to the forefront, the saddest among them was sexual harassment in the arts. And I felt, now we cannot wait. This is a matter of life and death. We have to take action. You can't keep waiting for the government or the next guy or somebody else will do it. The older generation is still here. The older generation had become deaf to these things by then. So, with two Calcutta dancers, we took the lead and set up a an initiative called Unmute, which was in the form of awareness lectures, workshops, seminars, and then we created a website called unmute.help, because we felt that everybody cannot be attending the seminar, and so let them access this material at leisure. So I urge you to go to it, www.unmute.help. It is a single window, how a website is, and you click, and whatever be your concern, if it is on your rights and responsibilities of artists and arts leaders. So if you want to know whether you can perform in the US on a tourist visa, we give you all the information in sort of normal language, not lawyerese, so most people understand what we are trying to say. You'd be surprised to know some of the old sitars have ivory parts to it, and they can be seized anytime under wildlife parts, trafficking. ऐसे करके. So there are lots of complications that we don't even acknowledge. But the sexual harassment fight became a very big fight. And after doing work in English, we also did work in Bengali. So Bengal was our pilot for regional bhasha mein work, which is very important. It's not enough to do it only in English or translate it into Hindi. I think working with the bhashas is critical.
Talking about working with language and its reflection in art, you're also associated with Sadi, right? So tell us a bit about that and the kind of writing that comes across on that platform.
So the word sadi in Punjabi means hours. Okay, but that's not the whole story. That was my little thrill, serendipitous thrill. Sadi stands for South Asian Dance Intersections. It is an international journal that is hosted at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte. Okay, now I was invited to be its editor in chief, and for me, it was a dream come true. I love writing on dance, and I love writing on dance and its intersections. Like COVID threw up for the first time for everybody. I didn't have to explain public health, dance and public health, kind of a thing. So most people can write on history and literature and dance and this and dance and that, but we are open to all sorts of intersections and all kinds of writings. So Sadi has writings that you may not find elsewhere, like ethnographic writings. How you dealt dance films. You don't find writings on dance films like that. Um, the scope is very wide, but right now we haven't even touched a fraction of it because we have had only one issue, but a damn good issue, if I may say so. So right now we are. So the first issue was almost entirely curational, but this issue is part curational and part. That means we've invited some articles, and there have been many submissions this time. So things are certainly looking up. And if you ask me to describe it in one line, smart line, I'll say our dance, our voice. So Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, India, they are all in it. And we will be very open to submissions in Bengali or Urdu or Hindi or Assamese or any of India's languages also. It means a lot of. It's very labor intensive when you have to translate and things like that. So that's one unique thing about Sadi, that it's truly people's voices. And secondly, we have a mentorship program. So if your piece has been found good but not good enough to be carried in this particular issue, then we assign a senior dance scholar from anywhere in the world to work with you to refine your work. And all the young dance scholars are thrilled to bits with this, because they read these guys and hear these, they're on first name terms with them. Yeah. So I was 57 when I wrote my first international piece, and I don't want the next generation to wait that long before they can go international. So really, Sadi is an attempt to speed up and catalyze this field so that our dance comes in our voices, and not that somebody else tells us who we are.
And it's a great way to show that not only can you dance on the stage, but you can also dance on the page, right?
Yes. It takes a total shift in mindsets, let me assure you, and that takes a long time. So, not all great dancers will make great writers and academic writers. So, you see, we follow the robustness of any other international journal. That is why sometimes I encourage people to go for the 2-year mentoring cycle and then write. It's okay, it's better to do that and have it, because otherwise, it will not pass muster academically.
My final question is about a book you've written about Pandit Mohanlal. So tell us a bit about him. Tell us about why you wrote that book and what about that personality strikes you the most.
Okay, so this is I never met him. Yeah, he died in 1985. I was active in the field of dance by that time, but we never met. I used to watch dance, and I'd always say, my God, this is so beautiful. One person did it, then weeks later, I would see another person. I'd say, "My God, this is so beautiful. Where did you learn it from?" I'd say, "My Guruji, like that." And I said, "What's the name?" And the name would always be Mohanrao Kallianpurkar. There was something in his work that was appealing to me. So I really fell in love with the work, not the man. Then, when I started working on the book, and it's not I alone, this book is written by three people. So often, when I am the only representative and we are talking about the book, I put my hands like this or like this, that Shamaji, Shilpa, and me, that we are all represented here. So, Shamaji had done a sort of centennial a seminar, 1 day or 2 day seminar or something like that. So there was some base work, and then COVID happened. And COVID taught us to, while we lived sort of locked up, we were reaching out to our friends through phones. And I spoke to Shamaji just like that, ki bhai, senior dancer hai and all that. And we started talking about who we like, and both of us said Mohanrao Kallianpurkar's work. And then she told me very proudly, "I did the centennial seminar." I said, "And where are the papers?" Because you see, I am a dance scholar primarily, not a dancer. So she said, "Yeah, they are with us. We put it on the net also." I said, "But it's very difficult to quote that, citation may. So let's look at converting it into a book." So when we read the papers, I said, "This is good as a seed. We need to interview afresh." So we drew up a list of 80 people and we started reaching out to them on Zoom, on WhatsApp, Google Meet, Teams, जो भी आजकल ऐसे platforms होते हैं. Sad thing, we lost many people before we could access them. But we kept our spirits up, and on Google Drive, as I say, this book zoomed its way into existence. And the three of us we are three separate generations, bring different skills onto it. So, for instance, there was a first chronological order and writing, which young Shilpa did, and she put it on the Google Drive. So that was safe, and there was no mad disappearing of chapters and things like that. Then she gave it to me, and I re-broke the material to make chapters that were roughly the same size. Then we realized the chapters weren't reflective of what we wanted to say. So there was this constant reorganizing. But had she not done the basic chronological work, we would have, in this reorganizing, lost some material. And eventually, when the book took shape, we were very happy about the way it took shape. It was not exactly as we had initially thought. And at some point, I took on the responsibility, because now we were going to deal with the editor, and that was a whole different ball game. Someday I will make a stand-up comedy about the process of writing this book. But the nicest thing about the book is that it's the first book on Indian dance which has a cloud attached to it. So we have QR codes, and believe you me, I didn't know anything about all this. It was an idea that came up from Shilpa, but I just thought that here's an opportunity for me to learn something and for us to do something progressive. Cree Foundation, which is mine, which by the way financed the book a little bit, some expenses, even on Zoom live. And we were able to create these QR codes, which are very impressive, because we have footage that we found of him, silent footage, but you can make out what he's doing by the mouthing and all that, and lots of photographs, his writings, other people's writings, and we were able to use all of that in the QR code things. But we kept one QR code empty. This is foresight. Ye mera kaam hai totally. Okay. Oh God, shit. Sorry. Then we kept that. Every time we go anywhere, we ask people, if you have any material on Mohanrao Kallianpurkar, give it to us. So what has happened is people are actually sharing. Somebody had a little recording, he sang this for me. So here are some photographs I had taken of him. Sometimes they're really blurry and all that. But archives are like that. So very happy now that an archive is building around the book. This was an unexpected thing. It's just that when she said we're going to plot all these little rooms with specific thing, I said, can we keep one room empty? Who knows, we may get. And sure enough, turned out to be a moment.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this conversation. Have a great time at KLF.
Thanks.